If you like this channel and what I do here, please help to support my work by checking out one of my books, available from Lulu Publishing and Amazon.com. Thank you. Hi folks, Carl James here from Electric Media Madness. You joined us for another Rewatchable video, and guests today, I have two guests today. I have Dan Ryan as usual with us.
Hello.
Yeah, you doing alright?
I'm good, yeah.
Good. And online we also have Finn Curtis with us. How you doing, mate?
Pretty good.
Good stuff. We're talking today about, well, first of all, I'll just put in context. Normally we talk about what we're going to watch, and it's usually stuff that I pick, because it's my channel, obviously. But you know, turnaround's fair play. I said to you if you thought there was anything that I hadn't watched that you were well versed on, and you suggested Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Yeah.
And I've got very little knowledge of anime and Japanese TV shows and films and things like that. As a child, I loved a show which was originally called X-Bomber in Japan, retitled Starfleet in the UK. A puppet series, but a lovely heir to that sort of the throne of classic Japanese sort of manga, anime, that sort of stuff. I've watched a few films as well, things like Akira, Ghost in the Shell, but that's about the limits of what I know. But this is something that both you, Dan, and Finn are well up on. You like the stuff and you watch a lot of it, and so I'm a real novice to this. So you guys are going to really lead the way today for this one. I will chime in here and there. There's a few things I wanted to talk about, some of my own perceptions on the very deep meanings of Neon Genesis Evangelion and the film, because specifically that's what we're going to be talking about, aren't we? Is the film, the End of Evangelion. The End of Evangelion has got some real sort of claims to real deep classic science fiction there. Things like Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End and Kubrick 2001: A Space Odyssey with the Star Child looming over the Earth and all that. But we'll get into all of that anyway. But yeah, you guys lead the show today. I have my piece of paper so that I don't get the pronunciation of the names wrong, because I apologise profusely to anybody who's a real dyed-in-the-wool fan, and they go like, no, he's getting it wrong, but I will do my very best, and I apologise.
People will do that.
And I'm sure they will, yeah. But it's certainly not coming from a place of trivialising it or ridiculing it or taking the piss or anything like that. I'm certainly not. I have great respect for the show. I really enjoyed the TV show, and I thought the film was brilliant. So, but we'll get into that. So, do you want to get the ball rolling on this one?
Firstly, when it was made, it was definitely like distinguishable from other anime of its time, from the opening and from the opening episodes and the series as a whole. A lot of people will classify it as a deconstruction of the mecha genre, as the Avas aren't actually robots; they are like humanoids, made from the mothers of the children. The other mech series of its time had a very different sort of like aesthetic to it. A lot of them were very much like Shinji is a child and he struggles with a lot with accepting fighting the angels. While a lot of other mech series, they're not like that. They're very much like, oh, I'm gonna save everyone, I'm gonna be the hero. But because of Anno's struggles in real life and in his depression, he reflected onto not just Shinji but all the characters, and this led to like the psychological aspects of Masato, even Gendo, Shinji, Asuka, Rei, and their like self like loathsome, and their how they deal with a lot of their like emotions and like general like depression. And Anno became clinically depressed, and one of the key sort of themes of Evangelion is like being able to love others and being able to love yourself. And Shinji being unable to do this and going into the hedgehog's dilemma. He's scared to love others because he knows that if he loves others, then he'll just get hurt. Other characters go into a hedonistic lifestyle, such as Masato.
There was one thing that I wanted to say at some point in this video, but I'll just sort of get it out of the way first of all, because one of the things that I do is some people who are familiar with my other work, more so away from this channel, is that I've spent the last sort of 10, 11 years being an alternative knowledge researcher. But I also get into sort of the realms of the esoteric and fringe knowledge and all that kind of thing as well. And there's a huge amount of that in this show. Gnosticism and is it Shinto, the Japanese predominant Shinto belief system in that country as well. There's huge amounts of stuff to do with Kabbalism and the Tree of Life and all that kind of thing in this show. And in Gnosticism and things, and similar sort of, I don't tend to sort of think of in terms of belief systems, but I certainly believe that in this world there's sort of like a God consciousness and an infinite consciousness to reality, and that beyond our sort of physical forms there is this greater reality, which is played out in End of Evangelion with the Human Instrumentality Project. It's literally played out on screen for you to see. This idea of leaving the physical and moving into a more sort of esoteric realm of, and it's this whole idea of everything is connected. So I am you, you are me. There are no individuals. We impose those limitations on ourselves in the physical world.
Nobody's alone. Everybody's one.
And one of the things with sort of the darker side of the occult and ritualism and the sort of the powers that be that run this world is they like people locked down into a very physical state of mind where you sort of think of yourself in a self-loathing kind of way and hate people and push people away, and I'm worthless and I can only value myself based on what others think of me and all this kind of thing. And it's a very negative energy level way of feeling and existing and thinking. And they, in this show, you're absolutely right, Finn, that these characters are going through that process, aren't they? And they are trapped in their sort of their depression or their anxieties or their self-loathing, and one of the common things that certainly in Western fictional material is this idea of the hang-ups that people have got as a result of things to do with their family and their upbringing and that. And this is something that's played out in this show and this film, but in a very different way, because they embrace they embrace their parents and their partners and that again, don't they?
Yeah.
When the instrumentality comes about. So much of Asuka.
Asuka, yeah, that is correct.
Asuka,
She's talking about like a mom who's got which is almost like trauma-based mind control stuff.
Yeah, she believed that her doll was her daughter.
Yeah, I mean, I normally when I look at this stuff in fiction, Western or fiction anyway, I'm thinking like this is like dragging the viewer down to a base level of emotion, which is quite negative. And certainly that's here on show in this show and film, but it shows you the other side of it as well. It shows you this idea of when you cast off the boundaries of the physical realm and think of things in a more sort of energy, human consciousness, the soul, that kind of thing.
What I like was the scene where Asuka, while Unit 2 was made from Adam and her mother, that's how they synchronize, obviously, and she basically has an epiphany, and she realizes that her mother was always with her, because obviously the cockpit, where they pilot the Ava, represents the womb, almost, right? Yeah, and it's like some symbolism, and the AT field as well. She realizes that the Ava is her mother, and her mother is protecting her and has always been watching over her, and she has like a moment of she basically like accepts herself and realizes that her mother still loves her, you know.
And I think that's true of Misato as well, with Kaiji, the lover, and
Rei
as well, yeah.
Well, I think with Rei, the issue with Rei is that the whole point of Rei's character is that she's just a clone and that she's indistinguishable to any other of her clones. If she dies, she just gets a new clone. Her existence is completely meaningless to her character herself. It's just she's just used from Yui and the clones. The original, well, not the original Rei, but the Rei that is throughout the series. She sort of realizes and learns stuff, but then she dies, and then it's all for nothing. And then the new Rei comes along, and then it's just nothing's carried over. It's just a clone. Nami, that the kanji for Nami is ordinary or plain. Rei Anami literally means ordinary. she's nothing.
Ikari's like he thinks that she thinks of him as a surrogate father, and that kind of backfires in the end of the film, doesn't it? Because he's like, oh, you'll do anything for me, God, and then she's just like, no. Pulls out. She pulls out a gun, does she? I can't remember now.
She pulls her hand out of her.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm getting mixed up with that, but yeah. Forgive me for a novice viewer, but anyway, the truth of the matter is he thinks that he's got her twisted around his little finger for his own agenda, and which is it's almost like a surrogate father, and in some ways you can almost say that he replaced her for his own son.
Yeah.
And it completely backfired on him. Actually, it's interesting because had he have embraced Shinji instead and used him to sort of forward his agendas and all that kind of thing, he probably would have got a lot more of what he wanted.
Well, the thing was, him and Shinji are the same. They were both scared of hurting each other and themselves.
Yeah.
So
is that cycle of being trapped in that cycle of
the hedgehog's dilemma?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's sort of like it's a very good way of putting that, because the hedgehog has its needles and it can't you can't touch it without hurting yourself, can you? So it's a very clever way of putting that across in the show, that is, and the film. One of certainly at some point, and we're going to talk about what it is specifically about it that you guys like and love and all that, but we'll come to that in a bit, because I'm always fascinated about what draws people to things, and but I think it's a really profound film.
Yeah, especially EOE, yeah.
It's it kind of, when you have humanity's just gone to that next level of existence. And I thought the end was really fascinating, because Shinji's there back at the end, isn't he? Effectively in some quasi state of reality. Whether you want to think of that as he's recreated himself in the real world or he's returned to the real world, that's open for interpretation. But you said to me, Dan, didn't you, that you was interested to see what I thought of that final word, disgusting. And some people don't really get that, but even as a novice I got that, because in Gnosticism, this idea of like, when you base yourself right down in the most basic human, the lower part of your kundalini and all that kind of thing, base emotions, negative emotions, trying to throttle somebody, all that kind of thing, and that. If you were somebody who was more enlightened or more further along the road of sort of human consciousness and all that, you would look on negative things as being disgusting. But I still think it's interesting, because there's an emotion behind that word, isn't there? Disgusting. I think a more appropriate thing would be to look at it as just saying, it's kind of beneath me, that is now. If you've evolved that much, you kind of look back on it and say that base emotion is kind of... But it shows how little Shinji has moved, ultimately, I think. I mean, I might be interpreting that completely wrong. I don't know what you guys think of that, but I think where everything else has moved on. But Shinji's just sort of like totally locked, isn't he?
To a certain extent.
In that respect of the...
By the end of the film, realised that he can be happy.
Oh yeah, absolutely, he does. And we see that in the two episodes of the end of the series as well. That potentialities. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
So the idea opens to him that he could, live a happy life. But by the end of the film, he hasn't still.
But I wonder if that's just because it's so completely foreign to him.
Yeah.
He's got no basic frame of reference to sort of recognise what a healthy, happy, positive way of living is, that it's just so foreign and alien to him that it just frightened him to death, didn't it? He just ran away from it, But you're right, he can recognise it to some degree,
Well, he realises in episode 26 of the original that he doesn't need he learns to love himself so that he can love others, and then he can make his own life, and then the congratulations scene.
Yeah. Of course. And maybe you could interpret the fact that he doesn't want to get into the Ava, and in the film and that in a way that's almost like an embracing of that, isn't it? That was the world, the life that he was forced into. You could maybe interpret that.
But then also, the last time he went in one, he killed the one person who he had a proper human connection with.
Somebody who
Kaworu
greatly respected him, rather than
someone who
I saw the Netflix
was worthy of his grace.
Worthy of his grace, yeah, because I saw the Netflix version of that. I had no clue about what the real nature of their relationship was, so it was just like, who is this going to him?
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with the being foreign to him is that the fact that he can't distinguish happiness and hedonism. He struggles to comprehend the fact that like what it means to be like to be loved and to love others, because he just sees hedonism. Same with Masato. Masato just keeps making the same mistake over and over and over again of just like living a hedonistic lifestyle, of just having sex all the time, basically. And then she before she dies, she says to Shinji, like, I keep making the same mistake over and over again. Like, you're not alone. Like they all have their own sort of like issues.
Yeah, definitely. It really is quite a. For me, it was a real breath of fresh air. And it certainly made me consider watching more, different types of shows. But as you've said, this is a gold standard of it. So am I going to be disappointed by watching other things that don't live up to that level? I don't know.
You won't get something like this.
No.
This is completely like, there's nothing else that I can think of that's even remotely similar to this. But there are, it's like just normal TV shows anyway. There's loads of good ones, there's loads of bad ones.
It's so rare though that you see something, and I suspect maybe it's because it's not so westernised, it's more Japanese and that, but there's so much about it that's so profound, and I said to you, didn't I, that I would be really shocked if I saw these things kind of playing out in a Western film or a TV show. They kind of put the occult reversal on it, and it's interesting because in this show they show the occult reversal as well. Tokyo 3, as above, so below, in the occult sense. It's above the ground and then it kind of reverses, and it's almost like the upside down in Stranger Things. Then it's down below, and you've got the pyramid as well, the inverted pyramid on Lilith's face with the 7 eyes and the 7 being the symbol of like Saturn belief systems and all that kind of thing. So it's really profoundly occult.
Yeah. There's some more symbolism actually. EOE. When Shinji and Masato were in the parking lot, there's a sign. It's on the 607 floor, whatever, right? Yeah, pointing left, right, meaning that it'll be 666, right? A little symbolism. There's also a cross, a massive cross before Masato dies. When Masato has a cross necklace.
He's got a bit of a fixation with crosses, hasn't he?
Yeah. And then Anno also said that there isn't any actual religious symbolism in it. He just likes it. He just thought that it's cool.
I do not buy that at all. I think he knows. He might not be religious. It might not be that he's religious or carries any of those beliefs himself personally, but I think he's well read. He knows the stuff. Yeah. Because you couldn't put all of that stuff in it without knowing something about it, would you? No. To know it doesn't necessarily mean to say that you believe it, because I research a lot of these belief systems, but I don't have any religious belief system of my own. To be more accurate, I don't have any dogmatic belief system. My beliefs are more about observational reality and that kind of thing. And I do have a belief system, and I do have a spirituality, but it's certainly not a mainstream religious belief system based one. And if you read this stuff and you study it and you learn it, you soak it up, and you really get to understand why he knows this stuff. He knows this stuff.
Adam and Lilith, obviously.
Adam and Lilith, it's biblical, Genesis, Book of Genesis, and all that, And the Tree of Life is like Kabbalah. That's the Jewish faith belief system and all that, and then of course you've got so many references to the left in it as well. I picked up on the left-handed path, which is occult stuff. Magi is a word from the occult as well. It's a practitioner of the belief system. The occult belief systems and that. And when I talk about occult, I have to make a point of very much saying that people frown at this idea of the occult. The occult is literally just means hidden. It just means knowledge, and so it's the intent behind the rituals that makes it good or bad. So if you've got a lot of the elite types in the world that have their ritualistic occult belief systems, they use it for their own selfish power-based agendas. But you can also channel those rituals and energy for very positive means. So to somebody who might see the instrumentality, somebody might look at that and say, that's the technological singularity in transhumanism, merging. It's because it's been done artificially. But then who's to say that? Because I believe that human evolution is predisposed to moving towards that anyway, naturally. You can do it naturally if you focus your energy and focus your consciousness. So that's not a technological. But that's a different way of coming at it. And I'm not bigging up transhumanism at all, because it's a very dangerous thing, and it's but it's been used for dangerous agendas, you know. But this again, that plays out in this. You read like Ray Kurzweil and all that, and he's talking about the merging of all human consciousness together into machines and all this kind of thing. And
I think basically what it all comes down to is the way that stories are told in this medium is a different way that allows for this sort of thing. Just the way that things are told in a Western way that wouldn't allow for something like this. And if they did try to do something like this, it'd be really bad.
Yeah.
So,
what I always say is what's fascinating is that what I think is really fascinating is that you know how I love Stanley Kubrick, and he's like an exception to the rule, isn't he? With his storytelling in his films, he was a really profound chap. I love his films and that, and you know that's why I recognised elements of like 2001 and stuff like that in End of Evangelion, and they don't push it. I think they're frightened of it because it shows outside of the box. Yeah. You're outside the box a bit more, aren't you?
It's not easy to consume.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, certainly somebody who doesn't have any sort of greater frame of reference for the world and reality and that would watch this and just be scratching their head and thinking, "What the," you know?
Which a lot of people do.
Because it has a focus on Anno's reflection. Anno reflects all of his insecurities and depression onto his characters, and he has a deep like idea of the otaku lifestyle, and how he's basically saying how hedonism is bad and escapism is bad. Because when you have a life of escapism, you're living an illusion. You're not actually tackling your issues in your life. You're just ignoring them. You're escaping. And because people watch this right, and they completely missed the message, and they saw it as just weeb trash, just like, oh, what waifus, you got all the waifus, and Anno's message wasn't properly heard.
And also, I'm sure there will be people, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but I'm sure there will be people who are watching this. You talked about other things in the genre, this idea, and I've been a victim of that as well, looking at these things sometimes as like, oh, big giant robots fighting each other, and all that kind of, and it's such a... there is a lot of that in anime. Yeah. There is a lot of that. You know, I'm not going to say that there isn't. But anybody who looked at Neon Genesis Evangelion or the End of Evangelion and thought, oh, giant... No. You don't get it if you think that it's just that. Because they're not even really giant robots, are they?
No. You know, cyborgs. They are cyborgs.
Yeah, there's organic elements to them as well, and there's also a spiritual, soul-based element to them as well. You know, am I right in understanding that the angels were various other versions of what humanity would have been?
Humans were spawned by Adam. Lilith spawned the angels.
But yeah, they are essentially
potential forms of life that would have occupied the earth. Is that what I'm saying?
They're like different,
and that's the reason why they're attacking each other.
Yeah, because
the dominance.
That they can't live together.
They can't live together.
They can't
right.
merge. Yeah, as Finn said.
Yeah, I've got you.
Basically, there was a seed of life, and they were basically put onto different planets. And I believe Lilith was one of the seeds of life. I might be wrong about this, and was placed underneath an Earth. I might not be.
But you know what? Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because until we watched the film, I was under a misconception about from the show, and this is Netflix's fault.
Yeah, Netflix.
Because I thought Adam was in the basement at Nev, because they subtitled it, didn't they? And they missed the dub on it. I think
when Kaiji comes in and he brings Adam, they call that Lilith.
They call it Lilith, yeah.
Yeah.
And I assumed that it was. So you know, you need to get your bleeding act together, Netflix. I mean, you're great service, but sometimes you're screwing with people's minds. Maybe it was done on purpose. Maybe it was an occult reversal, westernised occult reversal. They wanted us to think it was Adam in the basement, which brings me to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because when I watched it in the 4th season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they've got this thing called the Initiative, who are a secret underground thing, and they're building this like a god, demon, angel type creature called Adam, and then all the characters have to use like ritual energy to merge their consciousnesses together to make Buffy like an uber powerful being to able to fight Adam at the end of season 4. And there actually is a reversal of that, because it's not Adam So get your bloody act together, Netflix, because I thought that it was I thought that he was ripping off Evangelion for Buffy. What he'd done was, I think he clearly has watched it, Joss Whedon. I definitely think he's watched it.
It does sound like he
and
may
ripped
have.
a lot of it off for Buffy,
Yeah.
but he did it the other way around and used it as Adam instead. I'm interested to see because let's get into a bit of a discussion about this because I'll ask you in a minute what it is that you're both really drawn to it. But what I'm interested to think is because you've told me that there was a really bizarre reaction to the 2-part story that ended the 2 episodes that ended the series.
Got death threats and stuff.
What are your thoughts on that? More so when the very first time you watched it. What was you and Finn? What's your reaction? Should we go with Finn first? What were your reaction to those 2 episodes?
I liked it. I liked the whole psychological aspect of it, and like the whole point of those two episodes, right? Yeah, was Anno sort of like trying to put across his message. People didn't like that. Like I was saying, people just want escapism. So when Anno was trying to put his message across, right? Yeah, and have like a good and a sweet ending where Shinji like comes to realize that he can love himself and whatnot, and like that's his conclusion. People didn't like that because they just ignored it. Care about his message.
I liked it. I thought it was really good, and I can understand people being pissed off with the end of a show. Certainly, Lost is a very good example of that. They kept that going for 6 years and then just did not deliver at all at the end. But you don't necessarily have to end a story, but to still do a good story. Maybe if they'd never have done a film and just left the series there.
Well, that's what they were going to do.
But then they could have, because I do know that I did read something about the creation of the show and that. And what's the name of the chap again? Anno. Yeah. He's a big fan of. He's a big fan of The Prisoner. Patrick McGowan from the 60s, and that's got what some people consider to be an impenetrable final episode that just does not make any sense to some people. It makes sense to me, but I'm not trying to big myself up. And there's a lot of people out there that do understand the end of The Prisoner.
Well, the first time I watched it, episode 25, I was like, it's alright. I didn't think it was amazing, but I enjoyed the last one. And then when I rewatched it again after seeing the movie, I was like, holy shit, these are really good.
Yeah. So, let's ask that question then about what it is specifically. I mean, you probably could go on for ages, which is great, but you two talk between you about it. I mean, what is it about the show that you really love about it? What is it that you like?
Everything.
For me, it's literally primarily like Anno's reflecting his like struggles and stuff, right? Yeah, and how he like it has deep characters, and that's like one of the main reasons what I really like about the series and the End of Evangelion. It's mainly the characters, really. Yeah, every character is complex, and it's because of Anno and his struggles that led to that, really. And like you can sort of like a lot of people can relate to a lot of the characters, and relate to Anno.
I think also that a lot of people crave author-led storytelling nowadays because it's films and television stuff. We've talked in our videos about the lack of storytelling integrity and all that nowadays, and it's storytelling. Well, if you can call it storytelling, but production by committee, corporate making, and I miss that. I loved Babylon 5 because J. Michael Straczynski largely wrote the entire thing himself. The Twilight Zone had a lot of back in the 50s, 60s was Rod Serling driven, although there were a lot of other people who wrote it. Kubrick is the same. He took other people's stories, but he made them into his own. And people miss that nowadays. So I can understand why people still watch this.
See now how things work in Japan. Most things are based off like a book or a manga or something like that.
Was it originally a manga?
This was an original.
Oh, it was an original, was it?
Yeah.
Right.
But most things, the studio that are adapting it don't write it. Like they do what they do from the original writer.
Yeah.
And whenever they deviate, no one likes it. So they always stick to it. So you don't get that much in Japan. Everything
until they take something from Japan and take it to America and then completely
yeah.
Which there's plenty of examples of that. Like Ghost in the Shell is although I do, in fairness, I'm one of those few people that does like the American.
Disgusting. It's horrendous. You do realise that it completely misses the point of the original. It demonizes and antagonizes the whole idea of technology. It doesn't embrace it. It doesn't get the synthesis of the ending. It's awful. It is horrendous, disgusting.
But yeah, carry on what you were saying about the nature of the way they.
Yeah, so you generally don't get studios taking over and forcing it in a certain direction.
Yeah.
Which is why I enjoy the medium as much as I do, because everything is unique.
The key phrase to me that comes to mind is thought provoking, and it makes you think, and it's interesting, it's entertaining, and that really is missing. It's been missing for a long time in television and film all over the world, especially in the West. So for me, it's rare when you can actually sit down and watch something that's got likeable characters, which is a really good thing about this show, because I have my issues with Shinji.
Like, he's a child, like what makes him unique and special is that like he isn't like an archetype of other like mecha protagonists who want to just get in the robot, want to be badass and cool. He's a child, and that's why he's like this. He's a confused child, He's depressed. He's lonely. The show's about loneliness overall. He is how he is because he's a child and he doesn't want to be Ava, and he does it just because he knows that if he does it, he'll get acknowledged by his father, and he does it for himself, but he does it just because he wants to get like recognition from people around him, sort of like Asuka, because Asuka obviously has like the depression, and she's over the top, and she wants to like impress everybody because she's alone.
But I do think that a lot of it is driven from mommy and daddy issues. That's certainly something that's a big part of those characters. Daddy issues with Shinji and mommy issues with Asuka. But I mean, I'm not being flippant and just reducing it to that. There's obviously other elements to it, but I do think that's why I think that Joss Whedon was heavily influenced by these kinds of things with Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because Buffy was very much a character that she had her hang-ups, she had her issues, and that's something that people really liked about that show way back in the day, because it was a character that wasn't your. I like your archetypal hero-led show. I love Captain Kirk, that kind of archetypal hero of the hour type role. But I also like something of a little bit more of an anti-hero that's outside the box of writing. And there are some good characters that I like that in this. In fact, they're all like this in this show.
That is like depressed.
Well, no. They're just that that they're flawed characters, that they're not squeaky clean.
Yeah, everyone is.
Yeah, but like when it comes down to Shinji, is that he wants to love everybody, just to feel like compassion and like so he's not lonely, because he wants to love everything. He can't be loved. He's fixated on the idea of loving somebody that he's almost forgot what love is. Like the scene with like those four dream sequences with he's making the sandcastle, the pyramid, but then he's ordered to do it. He does it, but no one's around to see what he's done, so he doesn't get the acknowledgement. He can't be happy just making it himself. He needs to be acknowledged. And then where Asuka pushes him over the hot coffee, he's basically saying like help me, like love me. And Asuka's like pathetic because he knows that he doesn't actually love her. He doesn't love her. He's fixated on just being around anybody. But because he can't love anybody, he can't be loved back.
Any feeling he has got towards Asuka is like junk your pants when you're standing over a hospital bed.
He hates himself. He instantly like regretted that as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Me being joking aside,
and then we get I'm the lowest of the low. The original is I am so fucked up. Why didn't they just leave it like that? It's
and that's the dub too.
Yeah, it's like I'm the lowest of the low.
And that was what surprised me with the gay, that between Shinji and in this day and age, you'd have thought they'd have embraced that. But
it come out in Pride Month as well.
Did it? Yeah. God, they really missed that one, didn't they? They missed it. Talk about missed opportunity there,
They censor homosexuality.
Exactly.
In Pride Month.
You would have thought that they would embrace, representation. Great, It's got no issues with that whatsoever, so why didn't they? So I don't buy that there was just a genuine mistake made there, because they actually went out of their way to change that dialogue to, what was it again?
You are worthy of my
grace. It's a bit of a difference, isn't it, from what there was.
Does he at least say that he likes him?
He talks about how he was one of the nicest people that he'd ever known, and
The whole point of the original, is that it's explicit. He literally says, "I love you." It is explicit. There is no there's nothing in between. It's literally, "I love you," and that's sort of the point. It's awful. I hate it. I hate the Netflix dub.
So I couldn't understand the motivation of where that was going. Why he was so, because I'd lost the context of it. I didn't understand. I thought, this is a weird character reaction. Where this is going towards the end of that episode. Why?
Why they're both in bed together?
Yeah. Oh God. Netflix really ruined the point of Kaoru. It's someone who actually gives Shinji what he wants.
To me, he seemed just like a bit of a meh character, because I understood his importance in the story. But I hadn't got the importance of the emotional resonance of the character, because they ballsed it up.
Yeah, but this is actually my single problem with this entire show, is that Kaoru isn't in it long enough. He should be in it longer than
he's
episode.
a really important character and just gone, and that's it.
Well, if you think about it, right, it's like, even though it's literally one day, it's that small time that Shinji had with him, meant so much, because Shinji's had nothing, no real connection, no real love his entire life. He's had nothing. This one literal day meant the world to him, because being told that he's loved, even if it's one day, means so much more than if it was a week or a month or a year. That small time of just being embraced, even if it was one day. I think it's just that those key scenes with Shinji and them sharing those moments together is what's very important. Remember that Shinji is just fucked. He's sincerely just depressed, and he has no love or compassion in the world that any sort of connection.
I think there's something there's a lot of people in the world, by design, I might say, with in a lot of cases, the way the world is nowadays. But I think a lot of people do feel very lost sometimes, and they're trying to make sense of their place in the world and their interaction with other people and all that kind of thing. And there's something to be said for these kinds of stories being told. I think if you get a bit too sort of dwelling on it too much and a bit sort of whiny maybe, but it can be a bit too much sometimes. But there's a very fine line in fiction that they go too far with it. And apart from the beginning of the series, I did initially think Shinji, oh God, he's such a whiny little, but it went away quite quickly. That initial thought that I had, but I think part of that was because I didn't know what to expect with the show. I went into it completely cold, but I think they handled that quite well in the show.
Well, what's really important, right, is that Shinji's character development, right, throughout the entire series, he develops, right. He gets better, he gets stronger. He learns to somewhat love himself here, right? Yeah, he gets stronger. He gets acknowledged by his father, and then when his friend gets injured, because he realizes that by not piloting the Ava, his friend got hurt. He sort of breaks. He doesn't break completely, but when Kaoru dies, he completes completely and utterly, and it has a reverse effect of his development. He develops, and then he goes all the way back to where he started.
Yeah, it breaks him completely.
Yeah.
So but if not for those couple scenes, he does develop drastically, and he becomes a pretty strong protagonist, a pretty strong character. He does a lot, but then he breaks, and that's it's a reverse character development. I guess you could say.
It's an interesting character development. Certainly from a narrative structure perspective, it's an interesting way to take a character to pull back again on it, and go the other way with it. Because normally the traditional, certain Western storytelling is, it has to arc, the story does, the character has to go somewhere and not go back on itself again or go to so it's unexpected.
But in this, something happens that inside of it, and then he breaks, and then he just goes all the way back to episode 1, or even before that. He just loses everything. Also, you could say that Shinji sort of gets what he desires at the very end, because he gets compassion from Asuka. when Asuka touches his face, she's showing compassion to him. Like you could say that he chokes her because he doesn't know whether or not he's in like reality or not, or you can say that he's just like still in his bubble or whatnot. Because he chokes her in the dream sequence. He could potentially think that he's still in that, but then when she shows him compassion, he realizes that he's in reality. I suppose it's pretty complex. There's so much lore. Like we haven't even talked about the Dead Sea Scrolls either, or like the prophecy of the Dead Sea Scrolls like that, or the first angels.
One thing that I want to know: what did you think of the third impact scene?
Very erotic.
It is actually.
I didn't get that from it. I know what you're saying. You can clearly see that. I just kept thinking of the next stage in human evolution in 2001: A Space Odyssey, where the Star Child is hanging down over the Earth and looking gone very sort of like detached completely from what humans were before. It's like almost like the next step where humanity has gone, and I would have loved to have seen this in live action. It works brilliantly as what it is as animation, but I don't. They're probably cocked up anyway. But
I think certain things,
the imagery of the lineup of the moon and the with the wings and that is very occult sort of stuff and all that. But it reminds me of the planetary alignment in 2001 as well, with the Kubrick lines up everything with the monolith and all that, the line across and all that. And it's just like that. I couldn't help but think of all of that when I saw it. I thought it was very. I said to you, didn't I? I said this is very Kubrickian.
Yeah, some people do say that Anno is like the anime version of a Kubrick.
Yeah, I can understand people thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that the Third Impact is like a cinematic masterpiece. In terms of like an arts point of view.
Artistically, yeah. I mean, I know some researchers who would probably pick it apart and say, this is a lot of sort of very sort of dark sort of, and there may be some truth to that, but I think you have to sort of step back from it and look at it from all different kinds of angles. And certainly from an artistic point of view, this is somebody who's trying to tell their story without the influence of some mega corporation behind them and that. I mean, I imagine that when you see how many credits are on the beginning of the film, how many companies were involved in the making of it, that this wasn't led by one entity.
The person who animated Shinji's semen. I bet he's loving his life right now. That's his magnum opus of his career.
But to be honest, I'd be proud that I'd at least animated some of that movie.
Yeah, that is true. There's the Third Impact, and then there's Shinji's yogurt. The Third Impact is very interesting. It's very interesting how it's told as well, and how it's sequenced. Using Unit 1 as a medium, and obviously the Ray giant Lilith whatever merge, and how it's bringing everything in, and then how all the crosses are more religious symbolism, not really JK Anno. There's
a very sort of like the maternal, the feminine aspect, and Lilith and the Godhead and all that kind of thing is. I mean, that's really esoteric stuff, and it's like a birth. Like you say about the womb again, and like the birth, and it's like birthing the next step, the next stage of human consciousness and where it's going to go and all that kind of thing. And I said to you in Childhood's End of Arthur C. Clarke, humanity starts to sort of die off because certain children take on a next step in human evolution, but not everybody on the earth can go through this evolution. So they literally have to say goodbye to the rest of humanity. These chosen few evolve, and human consciousness goes out into the galaxy. It can't live on the Earth anymore, sort of basically, and it goes a different step of evolution, and what's left of humanity just dies, and it's just gone forever. And I know I'm very much reminded of that. Although in this everybody's gone, but it reminded me of that. This huge sort of epic above the earth scene, and it's really quite incredible actually the way it's realised.
The music is really so great. Fitting and so
in the
good.
film, yeah.
But that's the song that plays during the Third Impact.
Yeah, that's a great piece of music. Yeah, great song. Yeah.
I honestly couldn't think of a better fitting song.
Yeah, it worked really well, didn't it?
Yeah.
It worked really, really well. We talked as well about the use of classical music, which is, for some people, might seem a bit weird, but Oscar's fighting the other Avas and that with the I can't remember the piece of music that was playing over the top of it. That shouldn't work, but it did. It worked really well. It worked really, really well.
There's a theory that I read and saw about, and it was basically that the universe is in a loop, right? After the third impact, it goes back to the original time, right? Yeah. There's a couple of things, right? One of them was to do with rebuilds, and one of them to do with Rei. At the very start of the series, right, you can see Rei staring at Shinji. At the very end in AoE, you see that again. Rei there again. Throughout the entire series, you see Rei, and people think this could be due to a loop, right? Yeah, and interestingly enough, in the first Rebuild movie, the first scene that you see is the Red Sea. It's identical to the EOE, where right before you see Asuka and Shinji, you see a Red Sea. These are identical, and the very start of the series, where the Rebuild is the very first episode, right? Yeah, it is not. They're not the same frames. You have a mismatch of frames, which a lot of people think is due to a loop, and then the Rebuild break that loop. There's also a frame what I really like in when Computer Top plays, where Shinji chokes Asuka. It cuts to a lot of frames really quickly, and one of the frames it's reflected from Asuka's mother choking Asuka. Straight before that is Shinji choking Asuka, so you can sort of see this comparison of characteristics of what Asuka's going through. So somewhat it's quite impressive storytelling, because it's quite fast, really, and that, like Dan was saying, that it's a movie that just keeps giving. Like there's so much symbolism and there's so much meaning to it, without sounding overly deep. But yeah,
I've watched this film like 7 times now, and I get something new out of it every time. Like, it really does keep giving.
I know there's probably loads and loads of things we could talk about, but I think we've covered just our initial sort of gut reactions to things, and as we're discussing, certainly mine. Yeah, I can't think of anything else initially off the top of my head, but I'm glad I've watched it. I'm glad you suggested it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, because I weren't sure whether it would be your sort of thing.
It's not generally my cup of tea.
I thought
there are some genres that I'm not that big a fan of. But yeah, I
thought if you got to the movie, you'd like it.
Yeah.
But if you didn't get to the movie, you wouldn't like it.
Right. Yeah. And that is true of me, because normally I can manage about 6 episodes of something, and if it doesn't click with me, I struggle to go past that point then. But I did. I mean, I binge watched the first 15, 16 episodes in one go. No, that's a lie. I watched the first episode, and because I'd been out all night and tried to carry on watching it, but I fell asleep. That was not because it was bad, but I was exhausted. So I started again, and I watched 15, 16 in one go, and then I watched pretty much the rest in one go.
Yeah.
I ran out of time to get to the end, so I had to go back and watch the last 2 another day. So really, I pretty much binge watched it in one go, and that's good going for me, because I'm not the most patient person with things. I've got a very short, I've got a goldfish attention span with entertainment related stuff. It has to really grab me and really say something quite profound to me for me to sort of, or you know. And it did. It very much did. Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff there, and I was fascinated because that's something that I wanted to say actually about the TV series. The mystery of what's going on. It really holds off on it until the very, very end. Had there not been a film, I imagine the fans would have been really pissed off.
Oh, they were.
So many things would have not ever been explained, and the film does go quite a way to explaining it, doesn't it?
I think it speaks for itself that, I mean, the series came out 25 years ago, and people are still discussing it to this day. Like in full detail. Like people who watched it 20 years ago are still discussing it like we are now. So I think that really speaks for itself.
It says something, definitely. Yeah. I mean, there's shows that I watched 25 years ago that I love, but nobody else remembers them or cares about them. Do we want to rate it? Give it out of 10?
I mean, easy.
We don't do that.
Easy 10. Easy 10. And that's for the series as well. I give the series a 10 as well.
I think due to like a lot of what we've talked about, yeah, I probably a 10 just from how unique it is and how and I reflect on the characters and how people can relate to the characters and the music. The animation in EOE lives up to this day, and it was made in the 90s. It hasn't aged at all. Everything, the Asuka, the fight with the mass-produced Avas, the movements, you can feel everything in that fight. It's actually like so incredible. So yeah, EOE a 10, Evangelion, I suppose a 10. I don't really. It is a classic, and it is a pinnacle of the medium, and the messages in it, are very meaningful, and I think that's one of the reasons why I can't give it anything below a 10.
I very much like it when shows and films and that leave you room to interpret it your own way rather than just being bashed over the head with the film I'm going to give a 10 as well. Yeah. It was really good.
Yeah, I think like it's a cinematic masterpiece. Both parts, even the action is incredible, but the action isn't just amazing. The animation is, like I said, it hasn't aged, and you can feel so much emotion coming from Asuka as well. Like I was saying earlier, where she realizes that her mother still loves her and has been watching over her through the AT field and through being in the Ava. So like there's so much emotion from the character's point of view. The animation, the fight itself, everything is so great. And then obviously the third impact, the music's incredible, and it's such a memorable scene overall that it would stay with people for a lifetime, which is why it should be a 10 out of 10.
I do sometimes just sort of sit down, open up YouTube and rewatch the third impact.
Yeah, I do things like that with things I enjoy.
And Shinji's internal struggles while this is happening, everything just coalesces so well together.
So I just want to say thank you both, Dan and Finn, for joining me today. It's been really interesting discussion. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope you people who out there in the YouTube land are watching as well as enjoyed it. Please like the video if you can, subscribe to the channel, and share the video about. And we will see you in another video soon. Take care.
Goodbye.